All right, hello. In this lesson, we're going to go over a bunch of MCA questions, sample questions from previous MCA exams, but we're going to talk about how you can use Desmos to help, all right? Because on the exam this year, you'll be able to use Desmos, and it's a big help. So I want to show you just the different ways it might help you on this test. So the first thing is you need to get the calculator. And so if you go into Rapid Identity here and search for calc, you'll be able to find the calculator and load that up and have it loaded throughout this lesson. So, sorry, I'm going to find that online calculator here, click on it, and then you got to scroll down, do the 8th and 11th grade calculator, and you got to hit start now like 17 times here. Start, and then up here are the calculators. So you have the basic graphing one, which is useful sometimes, but the Desmos one is super nice, right? And I think you can actually make it bigger here somehow, which will make it easy. So I'm going to try to stretch this a little bit bigger. So there, now it looks a little bit more like the one on the regular Desmos site. So just know you can make it bigger there, and that'll be helpful. Okay, so the first question here is which equation represents a function? And oftentimes when you graph on the regular calculators, you have to get y alone. Desmos does it without that. Okay, so I'm basically going to type all these in quick and see which one represents a function. Okay, and for that first one, to get ABS, there's a little keyboard down here, and you can find the different symbols. So I'm going to need the fence post, ABS, which is right here. And then equals, what was that one? All right, so there's equals 0. And then x squared plus y squared equals 1. So you can use the little hat key on your keyboard, or obviously you can use the square key down here. Y squared equals 1. I'm making a circle equation there. Y minus x squared. And again, you don't have to manipulate them at all. Just type them in the way it looks. Equals 0. And then y squared minus x equals 0. Okay, so they're kind of all over the map here, but you can look at them one at a time if you want to turn them off here. So the rule is that, like, to be a function, every vertical line can cross only once. So like this red one doesn't count because you've got vertical lines here that would cross it more than once. So if you look at the circle, same thing. You'd have vertical lines that cross more than once. And it looks like this one's going to be our winner, because if you draw a bunch of vertical lines, it only crosses once. Okay, and that same thing with this last one. That one crosses multiple times, so that doesn't work. So it ends up being this one is the one that is a function. So we got this guy right here as a function. Okay, pretty easy if you know how to use the calculator. Just draw a bunch of vertical lines, and if it ever crosses more than once, it's not a function. Okay. What are the coordinates of the vertex of the parabola? So the vertex of a parabola is just like the bottom part of a valley or the top of a hill. So this is literally just type it in. You could certainly do transformations. This one goes like right 2 and up 3, but it's just as easy just to type it into Desmos straight up and then use that to figure it out. So I'm going to delete these old ones here and just type y, and then you can just type the parentheses x, let's see, x minus 2 squared. So do x minus 2 inside the parentheses, squared on the outside, plus 3. And then boom, you can just click right there, and there is your vertex. So our vertex here is going to be 2, 3. And then just if they, like the vertex is this point, and I just wanted to put a follow-up here about the intercepts. So remember you have x and y intercepts, and actually this one doesn't cross the x-axis. So this one for x-intercepts are none. And then for the y-intercept, you can usually just click right here in Desmos, and it looks like it's at 0, 7. So I just thought if you need some other points, sometimes I might ask about other points, and so they often ask the intercepts. So the y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis is that, and again, there's no x-intercepts. So just to practice that again, we'd say there's no x-intercepts. Okay, and then the y-intercept is at 7, or sometimes they'll write it as 0, 7. Okay, and then the final one is to talk about the solution. So like if you put a 0 here and try to solve it, these solutions are the same thing as the x-intercepts. And hopefully you remember learning that at some point. So on this particular example, there are no, well, they're imaginary solutions, I guess. So we just put, I'm just going to put no real solutions. So just remember when you look for the solutions, those are the same things as the x-intercepts. So kind of a lot going on there, but I thought I'd review those things too, just because sometimes they'll ask you about those on the graph. Okay, so here's a solve one. So this would be going to pause and see if you can actually solve this one. Now that's kind of what we were just talking about there. Where do you find the solution? So pause the video, use Desmos, see if you can find the solutions. Okay, so you can see I got it typed in here to Desmos. Just a couple quick notes. One, don't put in the comma. This comma, I think, messes up Desmos if you put it in there. So no comma there. And then you can just click on our answer, right? So there's -5 as an answer. But then please know that like with an x squared, generally there's 2 answers. Okay, so that means it must be crossing somewhere else. And so I'm actually going to zoom back, knowing that because it's an x squared, this exponent tells you how many answers. So there must be 2. So I'm going to zoom back and click, and now I'll actually see my 2 answers of -5 and 200. So that's an interesting one where you can use the calculator, but you definitely got to think a little bit and think about this should have 2 answers. So zoom it back and then find your 2 answers. Okay, next up. So what is the height? The height function, h is the height, t is the time of the object after it's thrown in the air. Which statement represents the range of heights for the object from 0.5 seconds to 1.5 seconds? So this is really good, again, just to do a graph. And so just to understand what the crap it's even asking us here, we've got time and height, the h of t, but it really just means height. And they want to know the range, so that's like the y numbers, from 0.5 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Okay, so I'm guessing this one's going to make this sort of parabola shape or whatever. And so what it really wants to know is from 0.5 seconds to 1.5 seconds, what's the possible height? So I would take these two numbers, look at like the lowest height it is and the highest height it is between these. So like what is the range of heights on the side here? So what are the, it's between what 2 numbers essentially, right? So let's take a look at the graph and then see if we can look at these x numbers and their corresponding y values. What is the heights between these 2 times? So I'll type it in quick. So this is what I got. So I got to zoom it in here a little bit to see better what's going on. And then I got to look at some of these points. So I'm going to try to zoom it. Maybe I can configure it what I want to see here. Let's do this. So let's set the x-axis. I don't need negative, so I'm going to do 0 to like, well, actually I only need it from, actually maybe I'll do this. I'll set the exact ones, 0.5 to 1.5 for the x. And then my y's are going to be kind of bigger, so let's do 0 to 200. And see if that gives us a view. Alright, so we can kind of see that, like, if we click along here, there's x.5, so I'm at about 140, and then we go up to about 144, it looks like. This is probably the vertex there. And then it kind of goes down off this side back to about 140, I'm guessing. Okay, so you can sort of see our low end is 140 for y here, and the high end is 144. And again, I manually set these by clicking here and setting my x-axis to be, and I could go out a little farther if I wanted to, maybe do 0 to 2 or something. I don't see if that'll help, but then I gotta look. Yeah, that's actually a better view. So now here's 0.5 is about 140, and here's 1.5 is about 140. So it goes up to 144, but then drops back down to 140. So my range is going to be anywhere between 140 and 144. So let's see if that's an answer choice. So I think it's this. This is just saying our height is bigger than 140 or equal to, but less than or equal to 144. So that's basically saying it's between 140 and 144. So that's the right range for the heights. Okay, so this one you have to interpret a little bit. So I'd encourage you to pause the video and try to interpret it on your own, and then kind of check back in to see if your answer matches up. Okay, so the tricky part on this one is, like, they give you some numbers, but they're already built into this equation. So here's like the 60 is makes 60 per bicycle. That's the monthly income that he makes is already in the equation, and this 4% or $4 increase is already right there in the equation. So really what matters is that R is the monthly income and X is the number of price increases. Okay, so like really we're trying to say what if one possible value of X if the monthly income is this. And so basically this number is an R number. Okay, so we're really trying to solve that equation to see when does it equal 1466. Okay, and then it just becomes a quadratic equation with some messy numbers for sure. Right, so to solve this by hand would be kind of a pain to try to factor it or something like that. But you can use Desmos. And what I would actually recommend doing is kind of like what we did in class, where get 0 on one side first, and then just type it into Desmos and find the x-intercepts. Okay, so I would minus that off. Okay, so now we're just going to type this in and find the x-intercepts. Okay, so I'm going to flip over to Desmos, type it in. Okay, so I got it typed in, but my window is all messed up, so I got to zoom around to find it. So there, it's kind of looking okay. And it looks like my intercepts are at 6, 0, and 9, 0. So our two answers would be like 9 and 6 for X. And this looks goofy, but again, you can manually make the window. If you want to make it a little more normal looking, let's try maybe negative 30 and 30. See if that looks any better. But you can kind of play around with it. But yeah, those would be the right x-intercepts. So our answer would be either 6 or 9. So I don't know why it says what is one possible value. So I guess you could answer either one here. Either x6 or x9 would be our good answers. I want to show something quick here. Like if you need to reset this, I don't even know what the defaults are, but like you could do like 20s or something, negative 20 to positive 20 maybe. So if you need to reset it ever, do something like that so it looks a little more normal, because mine was all zoomed all crazy. So just go in here and type in manually the ones you want and then kind of zoom it around from there if it ever starts looking crazy. I'm going to stop for there and make a second video because I'm almost out of time on this one. Yeah, thanks for watching. There'll be one more video coming here with the same information.